the best negotiation doesn't feel like a negotiation. When you have kept the momentum pretty high throughout the entire process, then this close and the negotiation becomes a lot easier to secure this rock star. You might not even be negotiating at this point. It might just be that natural alignment that this great rock star has all the information they already need, and they just need this little piece of information of the offer to kind of seal the deal. If it's like extremely aggressive from the candidate, that's a red flag. Because a true rock star leader doesn't communicate in that manner. They would have a softer approach to it. They would ask if there's flexibility. So if it's getting aggressive on the other side, I would take that as a red flag. Maybe we can include that. You do not want to negotiate with someone that's aggressive, because that's how they're going to be in your organization.
What role do you play?
Well, I'm the advocate. I'm the influencer. You could call me the influencer during this stage. Heavy influence. And I'm articulating and bringing back all of those points that I've learned about them that mean a lot to them outside of compensation. I'm painting the picture for them of what this could look like for them, sometimes their family, all of the items, again, that are really important to them, aligning it, if it's truthful, of course, to the company and what is in alignment.
Today we'll continue the section on close, of course. And I think this is a really interesting topic because I think it's interesting in general, not only for book and recruiting, because it's so essential to the business world, but yeah, how to handle negotiation. I think there's a lot that you can say because to me, it's a very strategic kind of topic. There's so many different directions you can go. So I'll let you kick it off on your notes, and I'll ask questions as needed.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, you're right. Like, you make a good point. It is a strategic topic, and depending on what type of sale you're doing, you have to kind of maneuver in the negotiation to what the actual product is. And in this case, it's a human. So we can't just treat it like a normal negotiation. And not only a human, but a rock star. That's we're not always coming across. So your mindset has to be, okay, I'm going into this with a rarity. So the negotiation has to be pivoted to this rarity of the person, the rock star. But just overall, what I had in my notes is the best negotiation doesn't feel like a negotiation. When you have kept the momentum pretty high throughout the entire process, then this close and the negotiation becomes a lot easier to secure this rock star. You might not even be negotiating at this point. It might just be that natural alignment that this great rock star has all of the information they already need, and they just need this little piece of information of the offer to kind of seal the deal. Ideally, that's the space you kind of want to be in, but of course it might not always happen. You know, if you're presenting the offer as not just a dollar sign, not just emphasizing the salary, the compensation, the money aspect, then your likelihood of acceptance is going to organically increase. That's something that's really, really important in this step. So sometimes it's like, hey, we might not even have to negotiate because of the way we're presenting the offer. It's eliminating the need to have even a negotiation discussion. And the way that you could do this is you're emphasizing the alignment. Again, we're speaking about alignment throughout the whole book, but we're re-emphasizing the alignment between what's important to the candidate to what this offer and this opportunity has. And then you're mentioning the actual dollar amounts and everything else, but you're not coming in and just saying, yeah, we'd love to offer you $150,000, $200,000, $300,000. Okay, great. Let's continue the rapport in this section of the process, meaning you're continuing the rapport by re-emphasizing that alignment. So you're not just mentioning the numbers. It's way more powerful that way. And then you get into the numbers. And when you get into the numbers, you want to be fair, of course, and ideally, at minimum, slightly above fair market value. You don't want to come in at fair market value because then you're just an average organization. An average organization, they don't want to join an average organization. They want to join more of what aligns to them, above average. So you have to come in a little bit above average in the offer. It doesn't mean go to the extreme and give them, you know, something that's not comparable to the market, but you want to be slightly above.
you can imagine maybe you're hiring a rock star. Your CFO is like, we really need to cut costs or keep payroll costs down. What if you try to land this rock star by offering them slightly, maybe a market rate or even slightly below, but hope to sell them on all the intangibles that rock stars love, like opportunity for growth or like a positive culture.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what would you say to that strategy?
There's a potential it can work if there's heavy, heavy alignment on other items,
Okay.
such as a fast track to the next level.
Yeah, got
And
it.
you're mentioning that in this stage as they're also projecting out, like, okay, if I accept this offer, where can I be? Okay, well, if I accept this offer within a year or two, I can increase my salary because I'm going to be at the next level. Well, they feel more confident with hearing that. But if you're coming in and just going underneath or right at fair market value, you're not mentioning these things, then it won't work in your favor. But I do, if we want to definitely emphasize, things could still work at fair market value if you have a strong proposition for the fast tracked growth. Things could still
Okay.
work because they're not just thinking this year. When they're committing, a true rock star is not committing to just 1 year in the organization. The
Right.
intent for them also is long term growth. So it is a fair point that you just mentioned. We have to back it up though. You have to
Yeah.
back it up. You can't just, okay, let's come in at fair market value and expect the best outcome. It's let's emphasize that fast track to the next level, what that could look like from a salary aspect and total compensation package, and not just mentioning first year. And this is actually a good point. I do have a couple of clients that might mention, hey, once you get to director level, this is your compensation. These are the additional bonuses that you would be eligible for. And I might emphasize it on my end too. And there, you can go so far as to create a projection plan for them, what it looks
Mhm.
like for year 1, year 2, year 3. If you want to go even further out, perfect. Give them a visual. That's a tactic that I've seen work really well, actually, with a couple of my clients. They provide a visual that they're sharing in the interview process, or they're sharing some internal data that gives them confidence that yes, this is where it could be. They're not just saying it verbally. They're now giving some
Okay.
confidence, uh, visually as well.
You got to prove
And
it somehow.
yes, exactly. Give them some more proof. Don't just say it. Show them
Mhm.
something that
Okay.
backs it up and provides more confidence and makes them feel like, hey, like they're starting to envision what it could be like at your company.
Hmm.
And the compensation, of course, it's always a factor. It might not be their number one, and maybe going back to an assumption, do not assume it's all about the money too, unless they've emphasized that to you. Then, of course, then we have to take that into consideration. But typically with a rock star, it's not about all about the money. It's
Right.
more about the total package from the compensation, the growth potential, the sometimes even flexibility in the environment.
Yeah. Or
Other items certainly can,
opportunity,
yes,
opportunity to do interesting work that challenges
yes,
them, right?
yes.
That's a big thing. Because rock stars don't want, I mean, you can pay a rock star 250K a year, but if they're doing work that's really boring or there's nothing filling their days, they're not going to be happy.
And they're going
So,
to just go somewhere else and get the same compensation with a
yeah.
more interesting job opportunity. Yes, that's accurate. And I've seen it happen many
Right.
times actually, where it's like, okay, I'm getting paid this amount, but it's like, it's not fulfilling. I'm not adding as much value as I can. And so if your opportunity is really that growth, that means more. But again, you
Hmm.
cannot come in at lower than fair market value and expect someone to accept the offer. In the rarity, though, I've seen candidates sometimes don't know that they've been undervalued for a long time. In the rare occasion, it could still work because this person has stayed at their one job. They don't really know the market. They don't know their value. But let's not take advantage of that. Let's make sure, hey, they feel good about this because they're going to see what's in the marketplace. So let's
Right.
not take advantage of that. That would not create the best outcome.
All right. So yeah, you can just continue to your next point. Yeah. Is there ever, I probably asked you this before, but when we're talking about negotiation, what's being negotiated? Obviously, salary, maybe benefits. I
Hmm.
think you mentioned, I mean, things like PTO or
Yes.
like perks. Also, I think you also mentioned the specific roles and responsibilities. Is that something that is also negotiated here, or that doesn't really apply to negotiation?
It depends on the stage of growth of the company. If they're a very well-structured company, they might be capped at where they can even add some, they can't really negotiate much. Like PTO is standard across the whole entire company. There's no negotiating that. It's just
Yeah.
standard. But if it's a smaller
So,
company, mid-market, sometimes there is, like, especially for leadership level, sometimes they add a few business days or days to PTO. That could definitely happen. But if you're a structured organization and the only thing that you can offer or negotiate is sometimes the salary, sometimes
mhm.
the annual bonus percentage target, I've seen
Okay.
sometimes that have some room, sometimes. But again, it could be standard to depending on the structure of the company. Those are
Okay.
items that if you have the flexibility, think through it versus just the money part, the
Mhm.
compensation part. You can even bluntly ask, what else is really important to you in this offer? And then
Yeah.
when they mention it, instead of just assuming, okay,
Uh, yeah.
let's directly ask, hey, how do you feel about this offer? And then they might open up and say, I wish I would have seen this, or yeah,
That's like the
especially if you're
magic.
speaking to if you're connecting with an external recruiter, they open up a little bit more sometimes because they don't feel like you're the company, so they're more
Right.
comfortable sometimes. Like, hey, I wish I had more PTO, and I was like, oh, hey, well, let me just ask instead
Yeah.
of let's not even assume that's not a possibility. I know it's not a possibility on the compensation right now. They said that's their final offer, for example. But then I learned that and then we collaborate on the offer. Hey, is there
Uh-huh.
flexibility here? They're like, you know what? Yeah, that could work. But not assuming, not assuming that it's only about the compensation and
Yeah.
re-emphasizing, like you said, the growth. You know what you can also do? Like paint the picture for them,
Okay.
the projection, like we talked about. That would be ideal, instead of just, oh, congratulations on your offer, base salary this, sorry, a bonus. Okay, perfect. Like that's an average process. We don't want to be average in this process because again, we're speaking to someone that's not just average, right?
So in, in the world you work in, Big Four, Fortune 500, or private equity, the companies that you serve, like when is the salary typically introduced in the interview process? And
Hmm.
'cause obviously they interview knowing they have some sense. So is it like a range and the final salary is determined when the offer is extended? Like how does it work exactly?
If it's the right strategy throughout the interview process, the recruiting process,
Hmm.
the hiring company would have already gathered some information about expectations. They hopefully were transparent about some of their compensation structure. That way, it's not a shock if things aren't aligned at the end. Hopefully, that was in the vetting. I'm not sure if we even emphasize that. But in the vetting, we have to make sure there's some type of expectation discussion so that we don't get to this finish line and we don't have a great result. We
Hmm.
want to ensure there's some alignment there because at the end of the day, everyone works for money and we have to ensure expectations align and what your company can offer aligns or handle that before this. And that's what I've seen be successful. Okay, the expectation is X, but they can only offer this. It's a difference of, let's say, 10 to 20,000. Well, let's see, is the candidate flexible? Is there flexibility? If not, if they're so hard on those numbers, okay, well, this is not going to be worth the time and energy. So I'm not sure if we could add that somewhere, but
Hmm.
that's really important. Then maybe just reminding them, like, hopefully you've already vetted this out. This is not the time to
Hmm.
assess whether expectations align. Maybe emphasizing that. This is not the time. Like that's a bot, if you
Yeah.
want to call that botched, like you said, that's a botched process if you're waiting for this offer stage to assess whether there's alignment on compensation. That's botched and it's a waste of time and energy. And it's like, we want a successful outcome. So we want alignment initially up front, some
Okay.
alignment. There's a slim possibility that things might still not work out, but at minimum, transparency was there. And so
Okay.
usually when there's more transparency, the outcome is better.
What if the negotiation does get adversarial? It's hard to really imagine, but I guess it happens. If the negotiation starts getting tense, heated, or they threaten to walk, I mean, I can imagine it happens a lot, but conceivable. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, maybe this doesn't happen because at this stage, yeah, both parties would kind of know if they're aligned or not. But do you have any just kind of general negotiating tips, including like psychological ones?
Yes. So first of all, you make a good point. If it's like extremely aggressive from the candidate, that's a red flag
Mm-hmm.
because a true rock star leader doesn't communicate in that manner. They would have a softer approach to it. They would ask if there's flexibility. So if it's getting aggressive on the other side, I would take that as a red flag. Maybe we can include that. You
Mm-hmm.
do not want to negotiate with someone that's aggressive because that's how they're going to be in your organization. And we have to, assess how they're communicating in this process. I think that could be important for the reader to know. We have to assess that. Now, if there is room for negotiation and the candidate is asking for maybe more money in general,
Mm-hmm.
there is a tactic that you could use on the psychology side, which incorporates urgency. And let's assume your company left, I don't know, a cushion of 5 to 10,000 on the base salary or on the target bonus. Now, if this candidate is asking for flexibility and says, "Hey, I really would love to join your company. I would accept at, I don't know, 170,000, but the offer was 160." And you have that cushion and they're a rock star. You have no reservations. Okay, well, we're going to go back and say, okay, great. We're going to increase your offer to 170 base, but we need a response today
Okay.
to
So you don't
secure the
want to
deal.
just give up something, you want to get something.
Exactly. We're willing to increase, yet
Mhm.
we would really need a response today. I've seen that work very, very well.
Okay.
Or, I mean, sometimes we need a response by tomorrow morning, depending on the time of day. But and this is how you can phrase it to have a better outcome. We
Okay.
are going to need an additional approval for this increase, and it will take an additional effort. Hence, if we get this additional approval, we will need the response by today. We will need your decision by today.
Good.
So that urgency, that's a really good question. Urgency. It
Mm-hmm.
works really well because if that candidate is really excited about your company, they're going to say, "Oh, great. I got what I wanted. I'm so excited." This was just the last straw. Like they needed just a little bit more to
Mm-hmm.
accept more quickly. And that's
Mm-hmm.
okay if you have the cushion. I recommend having some cushion for the right candidate. Just having some, because they're going to see other offers in the marketplace. They're going to do their research.
Mm-hmm.
Just having some cushion can really, really help.
Yeah, point B, I don't know if there's much to say here about how to operate when the candidate
Mhm.
has a new offer. Are there specific guidelines beyond like the obvious of like try to lock them down quickly?
If the candidate has another offer, a really good tactic is just to first make sure that you know whether your company is their first choice. And that's going to be
Okay.
just doing some diligence and sometimes even asking up front. Now, if you're leveraging an external party, like a strategic recruiter like myself, that's something I want to gain that insight. Reason being is we don't want to put additional efforts into, let's say, increasing an offer if
Right.
it's not their first preference. Okay, well, then let's just give them some time instead. But let's say it's their first preference. We gain that insight, it's their first preference. And the other offer that they have is higher and has maybe a detail that is exciting to them too. Well, let's gain that insight and let's see is there any flexibility with what the hiring company just offered. Most of the time when a hiring company knows what the other party's offering, they become and they're really interested in this candidate, they'll say, hey, like this is as high as we can go. We can't go any higher. Usually that's the
Okay.
response I get. This is the highest we could go. We're doing the best that we can. And they do. They try to get to the highest end if they really want this to secure this candidate. But it's making sure that we know is our company their first preference? And if it is, let's put in additional efforts right
Hmm.
away. Urgency, high urgency. Yeah, I think that that's really key. You know, treating it with high urgency when you know there are multiple offers that the candidate has and not playing hardball. It's not the time. That you're not dealing with the average type of person. They don't like to play those games. So do
What are
not play those games. Like going back and forth, that's the stupidest thing ever. Do not go back and forth.
you mean like back and forth on like a specific point, like getting stuck on some point of negotiation, or
Yeah, like maybe saying, okay, we could go to this number. And then they're like, no, I can't accept that. It needs to be here. And then going back and forth with the negotiation, it's not the best approach.
okay,
And the other side, the rock star is going to feel like, can they even make a decision? If they're
yeah,
too indecisive and not and also not timely, not timely. They have to be timely because that shows that this is a great organization I want to work for. So you have to present yourself in the right manner. You know, if it's a rock star organization, they might overlook sometimes these little items and how
mhm.
they feel in this close process. They're
Okay,
making, like, remind the reader that this rock star is making a commitment for years, not just for a few months. So the psychological factor of, hey, like don't play with their mind during this time. It's better to keep it simple, come with a really great offer, and you've done your diligence on the market. That's really important. I don't know if it was a different story in a different chapter or a same story in another chapter, but so Rockstar Candidate goes through the process. They love him, had the final round with the CEO. They're ready to make an offer. They made an offer. They knew the salary expectations, but 20,000 below. Like they started with too much cushion. And then when they realized that this person had another offer, they automatically jumped 20,000. I'm like, why leave that much cushion? It doesn't feel right. Now I had to maneuver it
yeah,
on my own and
yeah,
help the process, which I was able to. And we secured the candidate, like we closed him, but it could have been avoided. So that's something that could be avoided. Adding too much cushion. Yeah, that was, we don't want to do that. It's not a good best practice. It's not a best practice to do. Like come in super low to leave so much room for negotiation. Like we're not buying and selling a house, if that makes
yeah. It looks, yeah, because it feels like then you're not really treating them as a person. You're treating them as a commodity where you're seeing if you're just like floating a low offer to see if they'll take
if
the
they'll
bait.
bite. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I understand it's like economically it makes sense, but it sets the wrong tone, and it makes you as a company look a little bit sneaky. It's a little bit like a used cars salesman technique.
And this goes back to, guess what? HR came up with the number. Now, we'll go back to that chapter where we talked about you hired someone for HR and talent acquisition doesn't mean they know what they're doing. Doesn't mean they
Hmm.
know how to negotiate appropriately with a rock star. They
Yeah.
may have negotiated in a different company, different people that are coming into the organization that are okay with
Yeah.
that. Like you said, are they in a different type of role? Maybe that worked, but the rock star, that's not the approach with them.
Mhm.
That will work. In this case, I was an intermediary that helped the situation.
Yeah. That was my next question, actually. What role do you play?
Well, I'm the advocate. I'm the influencer. You could call me the influencer during this stage.
Okay.
Heavy influence. And I'm articulating and bringing back all of those points that I've learned about them that mean a lot to them outside of compensation. I'm painting the picture for them of what this could look like for them, sometimes their family, all of the items, again, that are really important to them, aligning it, if it's truthful, of course, to the company and what is in alignment. And then I'm talking to them sometimes more
Mhm.
intimately their decision. Like they're coming to me and wanting to hear more from me a lot of the times. And so I'm here to re-emphasize certain things, make sure that I stay super warm with them and
Mhm.
I am a true advocate of my client within the right balanced approach, not to where I'm selling my client. It's more I'm selling them in the form of alignment. You could even like emphasize that like I'm your influencer during this stage.
But when you say influencer, who are you influencing, and like one party or both parties?
For acceptance, I'm heavily influencing the candidate.
Okay. Is that just another word for convincing? Because I feel like you don't want to use that
Yes.
word. And there's a reason
Yes.
why. So again, to play devil's advocate,
Mm-hmm.
what is the difference between influencing and persuading? I think I kind of know actually, but I'd rather hear your answer.
It's slightly less aggressive, I feel, when you're
Mhm.
influencing.
Maybe the difference is like if you're persuading, you're trying to convince someone to do something they're not really ready to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're
Mm-hmm.
influencing, you're presenting an objective case
Mm-hmm.
about why this is a good idea, and you're like revealing the alignment that is already there rather
Yes.
than trying to convince
Yes.
them.
Yes.
A cynic might say, ah, this is just spin and these are the things. But I think there's a difference. And even like salespeople will say this too, that like
Mm-hmm.
like the best salespeople are not this like pushy aggressive type that convinces someone to do something. The best salespeople simply
Mm-hmm.
highlight the alignment that is there. And so it seems like kind of the same thing. Because being
Yes.
pushy, do you like sit down at the table with both parties, or it's more like you're kind of like the go-between where like how much do you actually get involved? You know, does it reach a point where you're actually sitting at the table with them or on a Zoom call with them at the same time, or it's more like asynchronous?
It depends on the organization. It depends on if they need my guidance. Sometimes they do ask me, like, what do you feel is a competitive offer here? And
Mhm.
then I'll just give them some guidance. Sometimes they have specific benchmarks already that are
Okay.
approved internally in their organization. So really it does depend, but certainly I can guide them in the right direction. What could be a competitive offer where I feel they would accept in other terms. They
Mhm.
might even come to me and say, "Hey, Rita, what do you feel is a competitive offer that they would accept?" And so we're not going back and forth at all. And that's where
Yeah.
I'm going to have a more intimate discussion with the candidate, understand, hopefully, if this is their first choice, and if it
Mhm.
is, what is going to excite them in the offer. So having that discussion with the candidate sometimes initially before the offer is approved and before it's extended. That's a good point
Okay.
that you asked about.
Should we talk about sticking points? I mean, we kind of addressed them already, but I don't know if there are some. This is point C, item C in the
Mhm.
outline. Main sticking points and how to resolve them. Are there any that we didn't talk about?
Yeah, I mean, in regards to negotiation, I mean, sometimes you're negotiating the time that they have to decide, not
Okay.
just the compensation.
Well, you also mentioned start date, I think, which is
Yes,
another. I don't know if there are any guidelines there, or it's like just a
yes.
case by case thing. I guess this is another kind of factor you can use as leverage. Okay, we'll give you that extra
Mhm.
$15,000 salary you want, but you have to start in 2 weeks, not in 2 months.
Yes. So let's say I mean, certainly if there is a push to start earlier, then you can use that tactic.
Mhm.
And sometimes I see like a sign-on bonus. Oh, we'll give you a sign-on bonus if you can start within X amount of days.
Okay.
You could definitely use that, and that could work in someone's favor, definitely. Now, the one that I was referring to initially was the decision that they're making. Let's say you give them the best practice of 3 business days. And they're like, hey, I need more time. Okay, well, let's not negotiate too little or too much time.
Uh-huh.
like having a standard there that we talked about before, but that could be a sticking point. And
Okay.
that's just, hey, like, let's just have a standard. We don't extend offers past this. That's just our policy.
Okay.
Bringing in that policy, mentioning a policy, that kind of covers everything. Like, hey, our
Yeah.
policy is 10 business days is the max. We would not be able to keep this offer open.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're like, should I keep the offer open? Should I not? And I get this from my clients. Sometimes they just keep it open too long. And then it's like, okay, we just lost this candidate. Sometimes they keep it open and it works out. But if it's too much time, usually it doesn't work out. And usually, so this is it's going to force the candidate to ensure they really want to join this company. And if they don't, well, let's move on to our second choice or to another rock star so we can secure a rock star. That's the goal. We don't want too much time to pass and then this person rejects the offer. And with companies that might not know what to say, they don't hire as often, a strategic role. They might be like, oh, we love this person, we want to keep it open, but then it doesn't work in anyone's favor.
Kind of walk us through a real life negotiation that you remember. Especially if there was one that was like memorable, difficult, or illustrate some of the big points we talked about. And the outcome could be either positive or negative because there's much to learn from both. I think a negative is a little more powerful. Yeah.
Okay.
There's this psychological, you probably know this from finance, but it's like people feel more pain from losing money than they feel gaining money. Have you heard this? It's like a psychological fact. So I think when you talk about stories and stuff,
The one recent one is they did give the candidate too much time, like a month.
Okay.
A month to make a decision. There's also another one that might be even maybe a little bit more realistic because it might not always be a month, but it was hovering around closer to 3 weeks. It was hovering around 3 weeks. Momentum was high. They had touch points, but it kind of was like a gray area. So they initially started with 3 business days, but then after he said he wanted more time, there wasn't an exact time frame given. It was just a gray area. Tell us when you want. Yeah. Well, we're fine you giving, but let's put a time frame on it. Because again, at the end of the day, we're decreasing the likelihood that we're going to be wasting time. And again, we could have moved on. So it took almost 3 weeks for this candidate to decline the offer.
Okay.
There wasn't a set time frame though when they extended it.
Yeah.
That's the point I want to make. Do not leave that gray area because now it's like, okay, we could have been having discussions with others instead of thinking that this candidate's going to accept. We kept it too open, like they kept it too open.
Do you have a story? I love a story of where we could see you handling a negotiation, kind of like snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. So a story where the negotiation is really on shaky ground and you kind of swoop in and play the hero and save the day. And I like it because it emphasizes like, another purpose of the book is to emphasize in a subtle way that companies need you. They can't, we're teaching them how to do it, but like also the big takeaway of the whole book is you need a recruiting partner to do it.
Well, when they have multiple offers, this is a big one.
Okay. Yeah. Let's discuss
This
that.
is the true influencer stage. And this is where, okay, they have multiple offers, they're assessing. Now, given I know different roles in finance and accounting, I know exactly what they could be involved in. I'm able to come back and say, hey, like that other offer that you have, I recall that you mentioned what's most important to you is work-life balance. That company, that role is going to not give you what you want. You're going to be on call 24/7. I remember you mentioned you're going to extend your family. That was really important to you. Like things like that. That's where the influencer comes into, where there are multiple offers and I can provide the guidance of directly what could be the best fit for them. This, in regards to this specific candidate, he was about to decline the offer because he received another offer. And the other offer was higher in compensation. I don't know if it was $10,000 to $15,000 higher on the base salary. So of course, like that is almost like a shiny object in front of you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, more compensation. But then you forget sometimes what do I have to do for that additional compensation? So I reeled him back, and I still remember this discussion because it was COVID. We were walking outside with my daughter. That's how closely I remember this. And I told my husband, I got to take this call. Literally was talking to this candidate for a half hour in the parking lot, walking back and forth. Like, first of all, I knew his goals, and I wanted to make sure he's aware, like, what he's getting himself into. And what I've heard from other candidates that got themselves into this type of role. So he was assessing a heavy transactions role, which could be a good fit for someone else, but his goals didn't align because he was really hoping for work-life balance. And in a transactions role, you're 24/7 like a doctor, like really heavily on call. You could be traveling, you think you're on vacation while you're traveling on Sunday. They just call you Saturday, you're traveling Sunday. That's the type of role it is. So I quickly kind of reeled him back and said, hey, okay, you're getting $10,000 to $15,000 more. This is the expectation at this firm. Just want to make sure you're thinking through this correctly. You mentioned what's most important to you initially and I go back to my notes. Okay, what's most important to them? Boom, boom, boom. Mention it.
I like that.
Now they're having an aha moment. Oh, yes. Oh, shit. I forgot about that. My shiny object syndrome came with this offer because it's higher. And then when I reeled him back to reality, he's like, oh, this is a no-brainer. I'm definitely not going to accept that offer.
Good. Yeah.
That's where I saved the day. When I'm advocating for my client and I know there's better alignment with my client than this other company because of my deep knowledge, though, of finance and accounting as well.
Yeah. And I guess this is also the advantage of a big network and knowledge in an internal HR person who's worked in the same company for 10 or 12 years. They're probably not going to have a good sense of what's going on in other firms, but you have, because you're kind of floating above the industry. You're not just rooted in one company, so you see what's going on. You kind of have a bird's eye view of things.
Yeah, and David, it's also the hiring company is capped at their influence. If they see, of course, they're going to talk greatly about their own company.
Yeah.
So the influence is only so much. But then when a party like myself comes in, they know that I have this deep knowledge and I've helped thousands of candidates in finance and accounting.
Yeah.
It's a different type of influence at that stage. Like how he took my advice, what I presented him, he knew was, like you said, honest, truthful. And it's just stating the facts. I was very direct. Like that's my approach too. As the influencer, I have to be direct with the facts and then articulate it in the best manner possible for the best outcome for my client. But still wanting the best outcome for the candidate, like if it's not a good fit, then I would just tell also my hiring company, hey, this is not a good fit because of XYZ.
Yeah. Maybe we should mention somewhere that you also have experience as a career coach.
Yes.
Because even though the book's not it's not dedicated to our audience, it might be worth mentioning that you've been on both sides of the equation. So you also empathize with them and their career goals. Even in this particular role, it's the hiring company paying you. So in some respect, you're loyal to them. You work with rockstars.
Yes.
Direct. Yeah, on some level, you're loyal to the person hiring you, but ethically and like professionally, you also understand what it's like to be the other guy on the other side of the table.
Yes, that's definitely worth mentioning because now they're viewing me not just as an executive recruiter, but they see that I'm a career coach as well.
Yeah, so you kind of
a
more well-rounded background. I don't know if this is typical of recruiters, but
no, definitely not.
Yeah, it certainly makes you seem more well-rounded.